Alright, so let's get this hub back together. So first thing you need to do, you're going to put this turning hub in here in the main hub. There's an O-ring inside here, make sure that's there. We're going to put a little grease on this. You need a whole lot, just enough to keep it sliding smoothly. And then you got to line up this lock or this tab between the spring and the lock anywhere, and make sure it's all the way seated. It'll be close to flush all the way around, and you can see there's a groove on the inside of this for the snap ring. So we'll get that in now. Stick that in. Make sure it's seated. I like to grab a flathead. Just grab a small flathead and go around it. Make sure it's all the way seated in. And then give it a quick turn. Make sure it moves smooth. Like so. And stick some more grease in here. Alright, so get the spring in there. Get this on, make sure the spring's all the way around that. Stick it on. So before you put it in, you gotta make sure this is in the right area, or the right position. So put it to free, and it's free when this hub is retracted all the way up. So line that up with free and twist the hub all the way down, and then you can get your gasket. I guess it doesn't matter, stick it right there. And there's a cutout. I'll show you this hub. So this hub has these cut out, the center cut out, and these two. Those have to line up with, there's a little tab on that one. On the other side, there's a little tab on that one. So those have to go in those cutout areas. So we'll get the gasket and line that up. This gasket also has it too, I believe. No, it doesn't. Might actually be easier to get the gasket on first. Alright, yeah, it's much easier to do that way. Get the gasket on. Stick that on in there. Line those up right there. And you're done. side I kind of already had together. Pull that up, put the gasket on it. And it's fine if you have a little grease on the gasket. It actually makes it easier if you ever need to pull the hub off again. Having grease on the gasket, it won't stick. It won't adhere to the hub here when you squish it together. So if you ever need to pull it apart, you can reuse the gasket, and it's only grease in here, so it's not, I mean, I've even used it on where it's oil soaked and it still seals just fine. So if you ever need to pull that apart again for any reason, you don't need a new gasket. So again, stick that to free, put the hub all the way down, twist the hub down, line up these tabs with the cutout, and like that. And now we can't bolt this together because the axle comes through and you got to put the circlip in there. So we'll just leave those like that for now. Alright, now I'm going to set this bearing race in here. I just took it out of the freezer, and that helps it shrink in size. So what you can do is take the old race and use that, and keep checking to make sure you're going in straight. Right here. Alright, so you can see right here there's a cutout, and you can see that it's seated all the way against this lip here. So after that, I just go around one more time just to make sure it's fully seated. Like that. Then we're going to take the new bearing, pack full of grease, install that, and then the seal goes on after the bearing in. So I'll show you guys how to pack that bearing. Alright, so I'll be using just some of this disc brake, wheel bearing grease. So basically you just take some grease, good amount, put it in your hand, and then you'll just run the bearing through it. You can shove it in the cracks a little bit too. But the point is to get the get the grease from the outside to the inside of this bearing, so the entire bearing's packed full of grease. So it gets a little tough to turn. So just do this till you're confident that it's packed full. You can kind of look in here, scrape this grease out of here, and you can see, if you can see that, you can see the grease taking up all the cavity in that bearing. So that's when you know it's full. So then I'll take a little bit more. Take a little more grease, put it on the race. Put a little extra on there just in case. And that thing should be good. Alright, now we're ready for that seal. Let me get these gloves off somehow. So here's the seal. There's two different sides, obviously. The side with the rubber on the outside, you can see this, that's basically a dust seal. So that'll go outside. And then this side has got a metal ring on the inside. And that goes down like this. And there is a step in this hub, so that'll seat. So make sure you get it all the way seated. So to go around it like you did the wheel or the race for the bearing. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it makes makes more of a solid sound when it bottoms out on that rim there inside the hub. So there's that. That's the inner bearing. That one's done. And then obviously the outer bearing. Well, we can get the race in, but we're gonna have to wait to put this on the axle before we put the bearing in. Alright, now we're going to put this outer race in. It's all frosty, just came out of the freezer. So what I ended up doing is actually taking the old race and I ground down this edge so it fits in. So I can use this instead of hitting directly on this. The other one worked. I mean, I didn't nick the race at all, but just to be safe, we're going to do it this way. So same procedure, just take the old race. And then just look in there from the back side, look at that cutout, make sure it's seated, and I'm just going to hit it one more time just to make sure it's all the way seated. And another thing that I have heard is these bearings and races are machined, or they're made to go on each other. I mean, I don't know if it really matters. I've heard you should keep them together. So I labeled this hub A. So I'm going to label this bearing A. Just to keep it together. Can't hurt. Alright, so this just goes here. Make sure everything's lined up. And these two bolts go in from the back side. I'm going to leave them loose for now until I get the wheel studs in there. Make sure everything's aligned, and then I'll tighten everything up. Just like that. Alright, now we're going to get the knuckle bearings in. Put my new fags in. We're going to drive these races into the housing, so same procedure as the wheel bearing races. So we're just going to use a brass punch. That's not going to mar the surface at all. So that's all the way seated. There's still a lip sticking out. I'm going to see if I can find my old ones and compare them to make sure these are the right ones. I thought I remember them being flush with this housing. So let me find those ones and I'll show you guys. Alright, so I did find that other bearing race, and it is shorter. But I took the knuckle, took the bearings, everything, I put it on. And it'll work, I'll just have to shim it a little bit more. So that's how far they're sitting out. So I don't know, I did a little research online and people are saying the same thing. So I guess they'll work. We'll see when we put it all together.